it was included on the list to just say this is an option. I don't know if any of the council members have a specific vision they'd like to see, but there's a lot of different ideas. With the three individuals who have reached out to the city, I think there's enough interest in people who have done commercial projects in the city or in neighboring communities that we might not need to go to a full brokerage listing and pay the percentages there. But I think that I think it might be a good idea to, at the very least, put up a for sale by owner, give a 60 or 90-day window for people to submit proposals, make it clear to people who are submitting proposals that we're not guaranteeing we'll even pick a proposal. We just want to see what's out there for what people want to do and what they're willing to pay for the property. What other thoughts or what direction do you want to go as a council? And then we can bring it back for an official decision at a future meeting.
Yes.
I agree with what Mrs. Barker said, that I don't think we should be involved in the sale of that or developing it, that put a proposal out there or advertise it as for sale and then see who and what and let them go from there. But I don't want to be involved in it, the sale of it or developing. I don't know that much about it to do it.
John, just working tonight? Nope, just not working. There it goes. The brokerage fees, when you go through a broker, is there a pretty large range? Or is it usually close to that 10%?
I haven't listed a piece of commercial property. Councilman Severing might know what he's seen for commercial brokerage fees.
Well, there's never an exact rate. People will say 6%, but that's against, anti-federal kind of situations, but usually 6%, but again, that's negotiable.
Okay.
Is that even on commercial property?
It could be, I've only sold one commercial property and it was at 6%, but it was a smaller commercial ground. It wasn't as large as that. So it could be negotiable.
Okay.
Yes, Councilman Barker?
I agree we should stay as far away from developing as possible. We do need to sell it, so we need to be involved in that, but where you say we've already got some interest, why don't we just put up a for sale by owner, save our fees, and see what comes? If we don't get the asking price we want, then maybe we can look at a broker or see what else is out there. But if we already have interest, let's see what they have to say.
Other comments? You're acquainted with the real estate market.
What's that?
You're acquainted with the real estate market. Is that?
I will only say that I think because it would be nice to put that money back into the city. I think we need to be proactive, but I'm not against us pursuing a for sale by owner if we can do that.
Okay.
So, but I do think we need to be proactive in selling it.
Councilman Turner?
I sell the property, don't develop it, and I don't care if we use a broker for sell by owner. It is negotiable. A lot of times you get a broker, they'll sell it for more, so that fee is not lost money. You know what I mean? So I think it's either way. I honestly, I just think we need to sell it if we're going to sell it. But we need to obviously go through all the appraisals and all that fun stuff. So it hasn't been zoned for anything yet anyway, for commercial wise.
Right. It's still zoned RE20. And
as far as making an agreement with the developer, before the sale, we still got to rezone it. It's got to go through planning commission. So I think that's all future stuff anyway. So I just think sell it and see where we're at. We get money for it.
And then just so council is clear, we did technically do the declaration of this property as surplus about 1.5 years ago, before it went under contract with John Mercer's group. And And so there's no formalities left as far as following the disposition of property, except for eventually accepting an offer that the council agrees with. So, okay.
I think you have the opinion of the group.
So what we'll do, council, is we'll write something up and bring it back as an official proposal for the council to sign off on. And I think my recommendation would be to not put a specific price on the property, but to say this is how much land is available, and we're asking people to give us a price they're willing to pay as well as what they want to do with it. Or another option is you could just pick a price and say whoever pays what they'll pay, then, we'll sell it and then work through if they can do what they want to do with it. Sorry, that might not made much sense. So one option is you could say, we'll just take the highest price. It'll be like a sealed bid type of an approach. On this date, whoever's given us the best price, we'll sell it to them with no guarantee that they can build on it what they want to. Or you can have people submit a proposal, say, I'm willing to pay this much and build this type of a thing. A good example is the council might say, well, it's in the city's interest to sell it for $100,000 less to someone who is going to be putting on, it won't be a Costco, so let's just say Costco, which generates a ton of sales tax volume. So if they're bringing a Costco in, the council might be willing to take less on the property because it'll generate more sales tax. But I think that's the approach that staff would recommend, is to give us a price and what they want to do with it, and then work out the details on how that works for the city, in council meeting. Is that like, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when we do that, does the city ask for, like a pre-qualification or proof of funds?
So we can include all that stuff in the proposal, saying that if we make essentially a demand, then they need to be able to provide proof of funds or financing within so many days and that sort of thing.
Okay, that
So
would be good.
in fact, if you'll work with me on that, Councilman Severing, it would be helpful to have your feedback on the exact best practices for this type of a project.
Sure.
And as someone that's not very versed in real estate, besides the appraisal, I know you can sell for more than the appraisal. Is it good to talk to a real estate agent that does commercial property without going under contract? Can we do that?
Yeah, we can.
And just see what they would maybe advertise it, and then so when we get these bids back, we'll actually know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it would be more information, the more information, the better. In theory, if you had, and I don't think we'll get 8 bids, but if you get 8 bids of varying prices, then you're getting a feel for what the market will pay. But I think you're right, talking to a broker or someone kind of to give the council a feedback of where they think the property is. And I think there's even commercial brokers out there who would give us like a CMA. It's a market analysis, and maybe do it for a small fee to come in and, as the council's evaluating proposals, to say, hey, this is my impression of what land in this area is worth. It wouldn't be the same as a full appraisal, but it would give you a good feel for where it's at. Typically, commercial appraisers are quite expensive. I want to say the last one we did was about $2,500, so they can, but at the same time, if you're selling property for, over $1 million, that's a fairly small amount to pay.
Well, yeah, that was gonna be my point. If we're selling for a couple million, $2,500 really isn't that big of an appraisal fee.
But a broker price opinion is pretty solid. I mean, and I haven't done as much commercial, but I bet you Robert could give you a good recommendation of somebody for that. But, a good broker price opinion would be just as valuable as quite honestly, right, Robert?
Yeah, and can I just say that if you appraise it and then you're tied to that value, it's gonna be hard to go above that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I prefer a broker opinion of value because of what you're talking about there.
Yeah, I think Robert would be a much better source than I am on that. I can help with the details on the the offering, but Robert would be a better source on that than me.
And council, for example, this is the type of thing that would be appropriate for a closed session, to have that broker come in and say, this is what I think it's worth, because that helps in the negotiation and valuation process that the council's gonna go in. But one thing Brent didn't say when he was here, typically documents that are viewed in closed meetings often become public documents after the closed meeting or after the sale has been finalized. So that type of thing would then be available to the public as a broker's opinion after the deal was closed and there wasn't a risk of tainting the transaction. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you, council, on your discussion on that particular item. Next item is discussion on RDA project. Presenter will be Evan Nielsen, our finance director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have about 4 years left of being able to receive revenue from the RDA area. So when we say RDA, it can stand for Redevelopment Agency, and then it can stand for Redevelopment Area. The council is the redevelopment agency, and the agency has established 2 areas within the city that have been designated for redevelopment and set up to receive redevelopment funding. So the redevelopment area, and so we have the RDA and the CDA. The RDA is an older area. It has about 4 years left of receiving revenue. The CDA is the newer redevelopment area. So we're talking specifically about the older area, which expires at the end of 2024. We felt like it would be wise to have a conversation with the council about the money that we have, the money we expect to receive in the next 4 years, and about some potential projects that money could be used on, so that we can be proactive in using that money. So just a basic summary of how it works. The council or the RDA board defines an area within the city that they would like to focus on for redevelopment, and agree to commit future revenues that are generated by that area. So the properties within the area have a base property tax revenue that they generate, and then the city, as well as other taxing entities, will commit to give up a certain portion of increment, a certain portion of additional revenues that are generated through redevelopment. So that's been the case here. We receive property tax increment that otherwise would have gone to the city's general fund. We receive it that otherwise would have gone to the school district, the fire district, various districts that are taxing entities of this area. So in the past fiscal year, I believe we received in excess of $700,000 generated in the RDA area. So this area was originally set up in part to help fund the North Shore Aquatic Center, and we continue to use a part of the revenues generated to pay the debt on the North Shore Aquatic Center. We have also used these funds on beautification efforts, including the benches and planters and garbage cans. Some has been used on the street lights, hanging baskets. So those are some of the items. We've also used RDA funds at Lee's Marketplace when that was redeveloped, Hug Hess Cafe, and Smith's Marketplace. And then we've also, the RDA has been a sponsor of the Chalk Art Festival that has been going on for the last few years at Kings Plaza. So we've kind of used this money for a variety of things. When it comes to North Shore, that is a major commitment that the city has made. That debt continues through 2024. So that debt, I think they must have designed the debt to expire about the same time as the RDA. We still owe about $1.3 million on the aquatic center, plus interest. The interest that we're scheduled to pay over the remaining life of the debt is $86,000.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you say that, how much is in the RDA right now?
At the end of fiscal year 19, we had about $1.3 million, and we expect that we will receive an additional, in the staff report I put 2.89 million, and I looked at those numbers again, and 2.69 million is more accurate, I think. So, and that's after meeting our debt obligations on the pool. So about $4 million is what we're estimating.
That's till 2024 though, right? That's not every year.
Right, that's a total over the course of what we have and what we'll get between now and 2024.
So could that money be used just to pay off that bond?
Yes.
How come we haven't sent it toward that?
So in the bond issuance, there was an agreed not to call before the 10 years was up. So when we refinanced it for 10 years at a lower rate than the previous bond, it was agreed that we wouldn't pay it early. So that's the reason why. It was part of the market at the time. In order to get that rate of a bond, it saved, I think, $220,000 on the total debt service. The agreement. It was a 20-year bond. At year 10, we refinanced it for a lower rate, and the payoff date was still the same. So it still was a 20-year payoff. But in order to get that lower rate, we had to agree to not pay it off early. Otherwise,
Are we contractually obligated to not pay it off early?
right? So
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, so are we contracted to not be able to pay it off early?
in the bond issuance documents, we can't pay it off early. We can, in theory, we could do what's called defeasing the bond, where we would give the money it takes to pay off the bond to Zion's Bank. They'd put it in an interest-bearing account that would basically pay off, make the payments every year until it pays it off. So the difference is, you could give it to Zion's and have them hold it and make interest, or we could keep it in the city's accounts and we hold interest and pay it off. So it's just a matter of who's holding the money.
So we could pay like 90% of it off and owe 10% of it left between now and the 2024?
No, because typically with bonds, you have to pay so much every year because the people who hold the bonds are expecting
The interest.
that interest payment every year. And so that's what the defeasing account would do, is Zion's would then take it and you'd give them 1.3 million, for lack of a better amount, and then they every year would just pay off the amount that was owed. But it would be designed so it essentially the money you gave them would exactly equal the money owed by the time the bond was up.
But it doesn't mature till 2024.
Right.
So in that scenario, John, would you expect to save the $86,000 in interest, or not necessarily?
So the way it's designed is, if the total payments made would be 1.3 million, the money you give them to put in their account would accrue an interest rate to match that 1.3 million. So we might give them 1.2, and then it would generate 100,000 in interest over the 5 years. And understand I'm not working with any actual calculated numbers.
Right.
So the only analysis might be, by us holding that 1.3 million in our accounts, or that 1.2, do we make more than that 100,000 off the PTIF funds or the other way that we manage the money? Because they'll put it in essentially a no-risk fund. In fact, most of the time, what my understanding is, what they do is they take that money and then they go out and buy other municipal bonds, so that the interest money that comes in from those bonds pays off our bonds. It's just the way that they typically do the market. Or in theory, the bank takes it and loans it out. I mean, that's another, but it's essentially no risk investment. It's guaranteed money there are lots of entities around the state who do that, and so that's.
So let's just say we're not gonna pay any less interest by paying it off early.
No, it's, the bond will still,
Set.
the bond cost will be the same regardless of where the money's at.
Or when?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. That's a good clarification. So, to me, the bottom line is we expect to have a total of approximately $4 million between now and the end. And so it's kind of up to us to come up with a strategy of what we do with that money. We already have 1.3 million cash in the bank, and then we expect the remainder to come over the course of the next 4 years.
And understand, council, again, this is a work session, so this is the beginning of the discussion that will be finalized in the coming years, right? The idea is to start getting a temperature of where the council's at, and then, as the council go out to the community to get a temperature of where the community's at on the importance of various projects. And as the list Evan's getting ready to go to, it's not all inclusive or in any particular order, it's just, here's some ideas.
So Evan,
oh yeah,
real quick, and then maybe I don't remember right, but does that 1.3 million include, because it seems like we loaned some money from the RDA to the CDA. Does that 1.3 include that payback?
the 1.3 does not include the payback, but the 4 million does.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Currently, 550,000 is what the CDA owes the RDA.
Evan?
Yes.
These RDA funds, one of the things that we've been hearing a lot of late as Starbucks goes in, Arby's is going in, there's a lot of discussion that these aren't the businesses we want in town. We'd rather have a Trader Joe's, or we'd rather have a Panera. Is that a business?
Panera Bread.
Yeah.
What does it make?
Make bread.
They make bread, okay, well, that's a good one. Can that money be used for incentive purposes to try to lure a business here when they aren't on their own deciding to come?
I believe it can. John, do you have a comment?
Yes, so typically it's been done as far as a hard infrastructure investment. A good example is with the strip mall north of Ace as well as the Ace building. There was money given to the cost of the building or the cost of the land so that the developer could make it pencil. That was typically tied to a very specific performance. So like with the Ace building, that the RDA board at the time knew who the tenant was going to be, what some of their projections were, and saw them as as the type of business that we wanted in the community. And so there was a payment made to make that deal work. I think that one was $200,000 that went back into building cost and land cost.
Didn't that go to didn't we help with the facade too? Isn't that what the?
And
some of
yeah, so the
RDA
strip mall north was facade.
Remember, right, there was some we did with Smith's Marketplace as well.
And Smith's Marketplace got a $300,000 infrastructure. I mean, it was sunk costs. And for example, Smith's in property tax and sales tax has more than paid that $300,000 back to not just to us, but to the other entities who get tax dollars from that group. So like Evan said, that the increment, so the increase, if they're paying $100 now in tax and it goes up to $300, then that $200 increase is divided among the agencies. And with the RDA in place, a portion of that money goes to the RDA. So it's a division of the increased dollars. It doesn't redivide the existing pie. It only divides the new one that's coming out of the oven. I don't know how else to say it, but have I just confused the issue more? Okay.
As we review some of these potential projects, I think it's good to kind of consider what you feel like the city's strategy should be. because the various ideas, if we were to go through with them, would have varying impacts on the city, whether it's going to, be a nice amenity for residents, or it's going to make things look and feel nicer, or if it's going to actually have an effect on our future property and sales tax revenues. So think about all those things and evaluate in the long term, what's going to be in the best interest of the city. So we have a map. Do you want to scroll to that map, John? We attempted to look at the entire area to identify potential projects or sites. The ideas in the staff report are not really new ideas. These are things that have been discussed in the past, and we've shown you the map on the staff report so you can see where the locations are. And there are potentially other projects too. These are just some that were obvious because they had been discussed previously. So, like John said, these are not in any particular order. It's kind of a geographical order.
Is that the boundaries of the CDA,
The green line is the boundary of the RDA.
RDA, sorry?
Yes. So number one is to relocate the wetlands, which is just out here to the west of the city offices. This idea was proposed as a possible way of creating more available commercial land. The properties to the north of the wetlands, where there were some homes, those properties have been purchased by the city for the road widening. And the city is eventually planning to sell those properties once the road project is complete. But there's the option or possibility of moving the wetlands in order to add to the commercial land availability in the city. The idea was also discussed that there could be possible recreational improvements to the wetlands. If you leave the wetlands, then there could be some recreational, boardwalk or something like that. That was just another idea thrown out. Number two, improvements at Bicentennial Park. I believe this park was put in the 1970s, and so it's a little bit dated. There have also been multiple issues where vehicles have ended up kind of down in the bowl there. So Tiffany in the Parks Department has thrown out the idea of changing some of the topography in order to improve, how that sits and the elevation of it and how the water flows through. There's not a specific, plan that's been drawn up yet, but just the concept of sort of redesigning Bicentennial Park is one of the ideas. Another item, number 3, this one is actually already approved in the current year budget. This was discussed during the budget process, and it's for $60,000 to go toward a retaining wall and landscaping behind Lee's. And I believe the intention of that was to make the land more suitable for commercial development. So that one is currently in the budget, and I believe the city attempted to bid that out but didn't get a great response, and so it's kind of been on hold for the last little while.
Yeah, so we bid it out and no contractors responded who could do the work, and so our plan is to bid it out in the coming weeks. Again, we're hoping now that the canal is dry, that might help with the incentive. Before they would have been working against a large tube of water, and now they won't. So anyways, we're hoping that we'll get some bids this time around.
And that project was also to keep the rainwater and snow melt on public property from flowing onto adjacent property, which violates our city ordinance.
Right.
Number 4, aquatic center upgrades. There's an idea of right at the end of the RDA, when that expires, to use money to revitalize the pool, new play equipment or new surfaces, whatever the aquatic center needs in order to get it ready for the next 20 years. It'll be about 20 years old in 2025. So there's that idea. Number 5 is streetscape improvements. The city council recently approved a new streetscape design for Washington Boulevard, which includes wider sidewalks, bike lanes, planted medians, street trees, street lighting. So obviously the street lighting along most of Washington Boulevard is complete, but the RDA funds could be used to further implement the approved streetscape design. Number 6, there's a fairly large parcel of undeveloped land just south of Smith's and behind the IHC building. IHC is the owner of that vacant land. We aren't aware of any development plans, but just wanted to point out that that's a large piece of undeveloped property that is within the RDA boundary. So, number 7, this idea has been talked about quite a bit, is the idea of burying the power lines along Washington Boulevard. That's a costly project, but Ogden has done this in their downtown area, and so improving the look and feel of downtown may do something to improve the commercial benefit that we get from the downtown area. The last one on the list is redeveloping Kings Plaza. Our city's general plan specifically mentions this plaza and the intent to revitalize the plaza and improve its use and look and feel. So Mayor Taylor had initiated a process back in 2013 to take steps to accomplish that goal. The city hired a consultant and an architect, and the architect provided several drawings. 2 of those drawings are included in the packet. And the whole project sort of lost steam. I think there were some political challenges at the time, and so nothing really became of that. So we still have those preliminary ideas in those drawings, and so if that plaza is an area of interest, then we have options of, part of the concept on these drawings was that there would be a public plaza or small park as part of the development. And so the city could participate in that, or in facades or redevelopment. This plaza, I think, has 6 or 8 different owners. There are different parcels that are kind of part of that area, and so there could be some challenges because of several owners being involved. Sometimes redevelopment agencies use money to consolidate parcels and then make the land more available for development. So there are some possibilities there. This is where the Chalk Art Festival takes place, and the RDA has contributed money to that annual event to try to improve the viability and letting people know about the area, I guess. So those are some thoughts on that, and we have these preliminary concept designs that are still with the city. So those are the 8 ideas that are on the list right now. If you have other ideas, we can talk about other ideas too, but we wanted to ask for a discussion on the topic and guidance. If you have preferences about any of these ideas, the money needs to be spent. It doesn't have to be spent by the expiration date, but we need to have a plan in place, at the end of those next 4 years to have it spent, depending on what the priorities of the board are. Some of these projects would be multi-year projects, so it makes sense that we would be discussing it now so that we're kind of ahead of the game as we near the end of the period. So, do you have any comments at this point that you'd like to make, or would you rather take some time to think about it?
So I have just one comment. It has just with this, we've been putting $5,000 into the Chalk Art Festival. I think that's been a very good cause. It's generated a lot of public interest. It was a great turnout. And I think that's something that we should continue putting it in. I didn't know it was coming from RDA. I know it was in a budget discussion, but I think we ought to do that, continue doing that if it comes out of the RDA. I mean, obviously, I don't remember ever seeing these conceptual drawings. These are kind of a cool idea, but right now, I just definitely I'd like to, and that's only $5,000 a year of that, but I still think that's something that we ought to do.
Well, and council, if the redevelopment of, and that reminds me, it's the North Ogden Plaza.
It is, yeah.
You could call it Kurtz or King's, but the official name is the North Ogden Plaza. But Evan had the idea based on an article he read in one of the many things he reads, of paying someone during the Chalk Art Festival to draw what the public open space or the public space in the plaza might look like, and then to bring in some trees that we were thinking of planting in another part of the city, putting them in to give the feel of the public space, and then get some feedback from people at the festival about what they like, what they don't like. So they draw the stream, they draw grass, they draw things like that to let people kind of experience it without going out and paying an architect to draw it up. That was one of the ideas Evan had, and what kind of spurred the idea of him taking the lead on this whole RDA discussion on projects and what to do as we finish out the redevelopment area.
Yeah, that conversation kind of led to does the council, is this area even a priority for the council? There are a lot of different uses of the money, so we felt like we ought to get some guidance before we go too far down any one of the pathways. So
I have a question. Evan, could a small portion of that money actually assist Spencer Alexander in his interest on preserving that area? What is it called? Coldwater Creek?
So
Does that work?
This, I think, and someone might know better, I believe this is Coldwater Creek. This blue right here, the creek comes down through this area and then goes across the street to where the Big O is, and then opens back up and becomes the creek again. So yes and no. The rules are the project has to benefit the redevelopment area. And so you can see this is where the North Ogden Plaza is, and then the creek comes out in daylights here and runs along. The storage sheds are right along that, and so there might be some improvements that could be done on that channel. It would be fair enough to argue that a trail along this route, bringing people so they can walk into the plaza, would probably be a benefit, including some bank improvements and things. So there might be an option for that.
I think that the trail there is on the trail plan.
It is, yeah.
Well, I just got to make a clarification on the drawing with the preferred concepts and stuff. The arrow at the bottom indicates north. It's wrong. It's a contractor thing, just so you know. That's not north. Yes. North is actually to your left. Yeah. So whoever drew that didn't know directions. Has nothing to do with our conversation other than it's a pet peeve.
But,
Stupid
so
contractor.
what you just said, Councilman Severing, that's the whole reason that we want to stir the pot and think about all the ideas, because that's one that we didn't think of. And I think that's spot on for, at the very least, there's an argument that along 1900 North, there's some channel and trail improvements that could happen that